Okay, so the plan was to make a simple video about thickening gravy, but while I was working on it, one of the gravies unexpectedly thinned out. If you don't want this to happen to you on Thanksgiving, might be good to watch this video. The backbone of any gravy is stock, but I have covered the topic of stock very extensively on this channel. If you need help with stock, just look in the description below this video for gazillion different ways to make it and even buy it. In this video, we'll focus on thickening that stock with flour because that's an essential part of making gravy that I haven't covered yet in depth, but now I will. Adding flour straight into a liquid will result in lumps. That's why it's first combined with fat, typically butter. If this mixture is cooked, it's called a roux. If it's uncooked, it's called beurre manière. In the past, sauces thickened with beurre manière have often thinned out for me after chilling and reheating, and sauces thickened with a roux have not. For pan sauces, it's not an issue because there are never any leftovers, but gravy is typically made in a much bigger quantity, and for many people, Thanksgiving is all about leftovers. That's a huge benefit of a roux. It allows the sauce to stay viscous permanently. Even if you refrigerate it for a few days and then reheat it, it won't thin out. To show you this property of roux, I made two gravies, one with beurre manière and one with a roux. The ingredients and the amounts between the two batches were exactly the same. I put them in the fridge overnight. The next day, I reheated them and couldn't believe my eyes. The roux sauce thinned out and the beurre manière sauce didn't. I was sure I must have labeled the containers wrong, so I tasted both batches. Nope, no mistake. The roux sauce did indeed thin out. I really didn't know what to make of it, so I made more batches. To stop wasting stock and wine, I went with water. That's why the sauce looks white and not brown. I tried to cook the roux shorter and longer. I tried simmering sauces for shorter and longer time. They were all slightly different in consistency, but chilling them overnight and reheating them didn't change it. None of these sauces thinned out. I looked through every Reddit thread, Harold McGee's on Food and Cooking, and Cooks Illustrated. Nothing. Since no one had an explanation for my thinned out gravy, not even ChatGPT, I started Googling for amylase. It's an enzyme that digests starch. I got to know it well while learning to make pastry cream. Pastry cream uses eggs which contain amylase. That's why it needs to be boiled for a full minute to deactivate that enzyme. Otherwise, its thick consistency is short-lived. Put it in the fridge to chill overnight and by the next day you'll have soup. Obviously, my gravy didn't have eggs, but what else contains amylase? I asked Google this question and oh no! Saliva. Don't get grossed out. I didn't spit into this gravy, but I did taste it several times and put the spoon right back into it. On a video making day, I often don't have time to eat, and this gravy was really yummy. I just needed to save a bit of it to chill and inspect its viscosity after reheating the next day. There was plenty to snack on. The one made with beurre manière wasn't as tasty, so I wasn't tempted to snack on it. But how much of my saliva could that possibly be? Surely you can't thin something out just by tasting it a few times, right? Turns out you can. SeriousSeeds.com had a wonderful article about this by Sweta Sivakmar. She licked the spoon and put it back into a starch-thickened soup. Repeating this 3 times thinned out the soup. Not immediately, it took some time, but the leftovers of the soup were not nearly as thick as the original version. I wonder if that's why my beurre manière sauces were thinning out in the past. I mean, they were all leftovers of really yummy dishes that people like to snack on while cleaning the kitchen. Just to clarify, this is my family meals we're talking about. In classes, I am religious about changing the spoon after every taste. If there are any chemists out there watching this video who can think of any other reason why a flour-thickened sauce would thin out, do leave me a comment. I'm terribly curious. The good news is that a thinned out sauce can be easily fixed. Just whip up some beurre manière, whisk it in, and bring your sauce to a boil. Now that we got the tasting spoon sorted out, let's talk about everything else you need to know to use flour as a thickener with the best possible results. Daniel Gritzer from SeriesSeeds.com set up a fabulous roux test last year. No, he didn't make 50 shades of roux, but he did make 4. Darker roux imparted more flavor, but less thickening power. The #1 job of the roux in the context of gravy is thickening. So you have to be careful not to let the roux get too dark. I only tested 2 shades most applicable to gravy, white and blonde. The sauce made with a slightly darker roux, that's the blonde one, was definitely thinner, but tastier. Here is the viscosity that I like. Here it is in the pot, and here it is on a plate. Keep in mind that gravy should feel a lot thinner in your pot than your final desired consistency. As soon as it hits a room temperature plate during service, it will become more viscous and you don't want it to feel like glue. To get this consistency, I use the following formula. If using white roux, for each cup of liquid I use 1 tablespoon plus 1 teaspoon of flour and the same amount of butter. If you're cooking the roux just a shade darker, add an extra teaspoon of flour for every cup of liquid. Many recipes that rely on roux don't tell you to bring the liquid to a simmer before adding it to the roux. I think that's a mistake. Who wants to stir their gravy or bechamel for 20 minutes waiting for it to thicken? If you bring the liquid to a simmer first, not only will you have fewer lumps, but your sauce will thicken in no time. Technically, any fat can be used for a gravy, but there is an advantage to using butter. If you're cooking the flour in the drippings from your turkey, it might be hard to judge the roux by its color. It will look slightly beige right away. Butter makes it a lot easier. Butter is only 80% fat and 20% water. This makes it easy to judge when your roux is ready. As long as the flour and butter are bubbling, there is still some water left in them. At this stage, there is no possibility of the flour darkening and losing its thickening power. Once the bubbling stops, all the water is gone, and that's when the color will start to change. If you want to play it safe and keep all of your flour's thickening power, add the liquid now. If you want to get a bit more toasty notes into your gravy, take it just a shade darker to the color of golden hay. Of course, if you didn't guess the ratio of flour and liquid quite right, you can always adjust your gravy after combining the roux with the liquid. If it's too thick, add more stock. If it's too thin, boil it down. Just be careful that you don't do it for too long. So choose your cookware wisely. A wide skillet will evaporate extra water a lot faster than a saucepan with a small diameter. I've read about roux thickened sauces thinning out if you simmer them for hours, but from my testing, a 10-minute simmer is perfectly safe. If your gravy is still too thin and threatening to get too salty if you boil it down anymore, whip up a little beurre manière, whisk it in, and bring it to a boil. Last but not least, don't forget to taste your gravy for salt before serving, but make sure to change the spoon after each taste. And of course, a little drizzle of pomegranate molasses or some other acidity never hurts. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.